When I was a teenager, our rector put in the bulletin a quote that said, "I complained that I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet." I've since learned that that's likely a proverb from Persia, about 1259 or something. When I read that at that time, it opened my eyes and I began to look around at the needs of others more than my own needs. And I think it was a pivotal influence in my life and helped me to continually think about others and not be too despondent about my own situation, poor me and all that sort of thing, but to realize that there are others in greater need than I am. And many times over the years during my ministry, I talked with people who were grievously ill in the hospital, facing perhaps death, who talked to me about the poor person in the bed next to them, or the person they saw down the hall, who's much worse off than they are, and their heart goes out to the other person. So it's a perspective on life that transforms a great deal. Well, this week, as you probably are all aware, the world has lost one of our great people. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, died after struggling with pancreatic cancer. I looked at his address, which he gave to the graduating class at Stanford in 2005. And in that address, he said to the graduating class, "When I was 17, I read a quote. If every day you think that this may be the last day of your life, then one day you will most certainly be right." And then Steve Jobs went on to say that had an effect on him. And so every morning he would look in the mirror and he would say to himself, "If you knew that this was the last day of your life, would you still do what you planned to do today?" And then he said, "If too many days in a row go by when the answer to that question is no, I need to make a change in my life." Well, when Steve gave that address in 2005, he said that he'd been practicing that every day for 33 years. And I assume he practiced it every day until he died. It was pivotal for him. It gave him a driving force. It was a way to make sure that he was on the right path, to make sure that he was on the right path that he knew was right for him. And I believe that the words of Moses recorded for us in the book of Deuteronomy have the same impact for us, are given for the same reason. Too often it's easy for us to look back on our lives and find our past littered with all kinds of good intentions, where we thought we'd want to do things or be better at this or better at that. Maybe we could learn to play the piano, or maybe we would be more kind-hearted, or maybe we'd become artistic, or maybe we would care more for the poor, or maybe we would, and we keep perhaps at times starting it for a little bit and then letting it go. Well, one of the things that God was concerned about for the people of Israel when they came into the Promised Land was that they might have thankful hearts. And so God told Moses to tell the people that each year they should come together and they should offer their offering at harvest time to remember that God brought them out of slavery, to remember that God took them through the perils of the Red Sea, to remember that God brought them through the wilderness, to remember that God brought them to the Promised Land, to remember that when they came into the Promised Land, the rain fell down and watered the earth, the sun came out and the crops were abundant, to remember that when they needed copper or gold or iron or silver, they only needed to dig it out of the hills, and there it was. This was different from the land of Egypt, you know. For in the land of Egypt, to water the crops, you had to divert the Nile. the rain just didn't fall the way it did in the land of Israel. Things like copper and iron and gold and silver had to be imported. But there it was, all the wealth that God could give them in the promised land. They might forget where it all came from if they didn't come each year and make those offerings. And worse might befall them, according to what God said through Moses. Not just that they would forget who it was, but they begin to think that they were self-sufficient within themselves. And they would get to the point where Adam and Eve got to at the very beginning. And that is, we don't need God anymore. That was the sin of taking the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, deciding for themselves what's right and what's wrong. So in order to prevent that total loss and destruction, God said to the people, come and make your offering of the fruits of the harvest each year. We have that opportunity. We come together today to give thanks for all those things. And when we talked to the children, we came up with 29 things that we're thankful for. We come together week by week and offer our Holy Eucharist. You know, I think that Eucharist is a Greek word meaning thanksgiving. We offer thanksgiving each week when we come and share in the Eucharist. We could, and many of us do, offer thanks every day. When you sit down for a meal, you give thanks to God for God's abundance in that meal. Making Thanksgiving a part of your daily life can help to transform you. And instead of all of those things from the past that you wish you'd done that you haven't done, you might want to find a way to remember to give thanks each and every day. So here's a few things that you might do. You might put a little sign on your mirror and say, what am I thankful for today? Or you could put it right on your fridge before you open the door to see what's in there to eat. What am I thankful for today? Or here's another idea that might even be more powerful for you. Get a book, a notebook, and a pen that you like to write with. And every day, every single day, before you go to bed, or at supper time, or some time that's predictable for you, open the book and write on a page in the book what it is that you are thankful for today. And write it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. And if the time comes when you sit there and you think, I can't think of anything that I'm thankful for right now, my life is such a mess, then leaf back through the pages of your life and look at all the things for which you have been thankful. And remember all the good things that God has given to you in the past. And look at all that God has done. And all the times of rejoicing and thanksgiving that were in your heart. And then you might come back to that blank page and give thanks that your life has been so rich and so full and so wondrous. Establish for yourself a pattern of thanksgiving. Perhaps the 10th leper, the one who came back to see Jesus, had that as the pattern of his life. Perhaps he was always giving thanks, even though he had leprosy. So that when the time came when he was healed, his first and automatic response was to run back to Jesus and throw himself at Jesus' feet and offer thanks for the healing that he received. That meant that man received one more blessing than the other 9. He received that personal word from Jesus that said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you whole. That man received another blessing because of the gratitude that flowed from his heart. So giving thanks is not just something that God needs. God didn't ask the Israelites to bring the fruits of their harvest because God was in any way particularly hungry. One of the Psalms says, the cattle on a thousand hills are mine. I don't need your food. God calls us to give thanks because of what it does for us. The transformation that takes place in our souls. The change of our attitude. Transforming us into joyful people. People whose hearts are filled with thankfulness. So the gift of thanksgiving that we symbolize today in our fruits and vegetables, corn stalks and pumpkins, that gift we can take home with us. Write it down day by day. Make a note of it every day. And over the days and weeks and months and years, you will build a wealth of stories of thanksgiving from your life. A treasure for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, for generations yet to come. A gift that you give yourself as you give that gift to God.